And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
It is a beautiful day for a wingy. What's going on, guys? Happy Saturday to you, and welcome to your Winged Eagle podcast for July 27th. Holy shit, August is almost here. 2024. Got a big one today, at least sort of. We got a lot of wrestling news to get into. We got blood and guts stuff to get into. We got free agent news to get into. We got comings and goings. We got contract information. We got media rights deals. We got Comic-Con. We got WWE in Japan. We got SummerSlam All In coming up. We got lots going on. So as we did last week on the podcast, we kind of caught up on some of the news I missed while I was gone on vacation, but now I've been back for a solid week or over a week, and I am back in the swing of things. So in today's episode, we're going to get into a lot of, kind of wrestling news. One thing I did do this week that I don't often do is that I skipped SmackDown last night. Did not watch it. Didn't have time. Super busy day. I knew it was a tape show. I read the results last week or a few days ago, whenever it was. So I kind of already knew what to expect. Tito, don't do that. He's biting on my power cord there. So kind of already knew what to expect. And so I flat out did not watch the show last night at all. So we aren't really going to talk too much about SmackDown in this episode, but we are going to talk about SummerSlam and how the card is looking right now. We were also here on Monday to do a Raw review. We talked all about the Dominic and Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley love triangle and what I believe is Dom and Liv in cahoots and Dominic pretending to chew her out and her pretending to cry only to fool Rhea Ripley. We'll see if I turn out to be right about that. Also, the Punk and McIntyre match is official with Seth Rollins being added as the special guest referee. And Drew McIntyre took a picture yesterday, which is kind of interesting. We'll be getting into that too. So kind of a lot of wrestling news, just general stuff goings on in both companies, big pay-per-view card previews, plus on the AEW side of things, lots going on. I want to talk about Blood and Guts this past week. I want to talk about MJF's brand new American Championship belt. I want to talk about the chair shot to Jack Perry's face. And we have a lot going on in AEW land. Death Before Dishonor was last night. Rampage was also last night, and we had a big result coming out of that show. It looks like Darby got 2 championship matches in the same TV taping. One for the TNT, one for the world. Crazy. Also, tonight, Collision, followed by Battle of the Belts. So there's a lot going on in AEW land right now. The G1 Climax is still ongoing as well. If you are a wrestling fan, there have been worse times to be alive. That is for sure, because this is a pretty good weekend of wrestling, pretty good week of wrestling. And I think August, with SummerSlam and All In kind of bookending the month there, we're in for some treats here in the next few weeks. So let's be excited about that. That's what I recommend anyway. So I'll cruise over here to the chat, say hello to all of you guys, and then we will start jumping into our news. Thank you so much for being here with me a little bit earlier. Saturdays are going to be really whack for me in the summer. We could be going live here at all different times. Hopefully anywhere between 5 and 6 Eastern and 2 and 3 Pacific is what we're going to shoot for every Saturday here between now and September. But the times might be a little shoddy, so I appreciate you guys staying tuned, staying subscribed, and being aware of when I'm coming up here on Saturdays. But once we get into the fall season, we should be here a little bit more consistently with our times on Saturday. But summer is just a busy-ass time for me at that other job that I have to do in order to get my bills paid. So thank you for being here. It's going to be a fun podcast, and we got a big watch-along tomorrow as well. Let's say hello to everybody who is here. Just a few of you are here so far. I'll hit the channel members first. I see Zane G letting us know that he's first. You're always first in my heart, Zane. And Tatanani is here. We got Big J, Danny in Oak Park. We got Mike Rouse. We got Max Pokebruh. Also, Isaac is here. We have Tatanani and Luke McAllister hitting us with $10. All you channel members who are here, thank you for joining us today. Hey, Greg, great to see development on WrestleMania in London. That is on my list. One of the top things we're going to talk about today. I have my fingers crossed on 2026 or 2027. Luke, I personally think those are both too early, but we'll see. We'll see. Looking forward to SummerSlam and All In, which I'll be attending for the second year in a row. That's cool. You're going to be going to both All Ins. And we are going to be talking about WrestleMania potentially coming to London because Nick Khan and Triple H did fly to London and met with the mayor to discuss the possibility of a future WrestleMania coming to London. Now, I've always maintained that WWE probably would not travel outside of the continental U.S. to do that, but that was when Vince was around. And we've seen how marvelously these international PLEs perform for WWE, especially with the crowds and stuff. So London and all the fans in the UK have always been a great fan base for not only WWE, but pro wrestling in general. And I've always maintained that London absolutely deserves a WrestleMania. It's not about, to me anyway, it was never about whether or not they deserve it. Of course they deserve it. That's a given. All you have to do is look at those fans and their enthusiasm to know that they deserve it. Will they ever go there? I always kind of thought that they would not, but now it's starting to look like it's likely. I kind of think 2026 or 2027 is a bit early. You know, you're talking 3 years from now. I think this is minimum 5 years away, but that's just a gut feeling. So don't take my word on it. Luke, for your sake, I hope you are right. I do. I hope it gets there sooner rather than later, but I'm looking more of a 2030 type of thing is what I'm thinking. So maybe even, I mean, it's way in the distant future, you know, maybe WrestleMania 45 or WrestleMania 50. One of those two numbers would be good maybe to put in London, you know, kind of like a milestone number like that, maybe would be perfect for, I guess it will be in Wembley, right? If they come to London. So I guess it would have to be. Now there's probably another stadium there, but Wembley's probably going to be the site, right? So that's interesting, and that's awesome for the UK fans there once that becomes a reality. And I don't think WWE would go through a lot of these, meetings and stuff if they didn't intend on maybe doing this one day. So I think it's definitely a very likely possibility now. Also good to see Gilbert, Rodrigo, we got Mohammed, we got Martin Tomlinson, we got Damian Drain, Ben Espinoza, Sonic Plays, William, Seamus Maximus, we got Stephen Harris, we have, I got you already, Marcus M. The new one is here as well, Jose Lopez. All y'all hanging out today, joining us. Thank you very much. You know what to do. Subscribe, please. Super chats are open, memberships are open, and that little thumbs up button right now or down there right below the screen. Click that for me. You guys have been doing good on the likes. That really, really, really helps the algorithms, as for some reason, after we were just killing it with our subscriber growth, we have just stopped since WrestleMania. So this happens every year. No big deal. We'll pick it back up. But the lack of growth is a little bit concerning. So please help us out. Get the word out there. Share the channel. Spread the love. That type of thing. And I would be appreciative of that. All right. So tomorrow, we are back tomorrow night for our classic Sunday night watch-alongs. And we're going to watch SummerSlam 1999. It's been recommended a ton of times on the channel, and I've always put it off because it's never really been one of my favorite SummerSlams, but it is an interesting SummerSlam. It's in Minneapolis. Jesse the Body Ventura is the referee in the main event. Kind of a controversial finish to the main event as well. Really good Shane McMahon and test match on this card, and that's about all I remember of it, other than maybe The Rock taking on King Bob. But my name's Billy. That's all I really remember about SummerSlam 1999. So we're going to be watching that tomorrow night. 1 week from today, we're going to be here live together watching SummerSlam. So we'll be here for a full SummerSlam watch along. We'll stick around, do a review after the show. And then 1 week from tomorrow, we'll probably bust out one more SummerSlam watch along. And I think we're going to do 1996 because it was the last time SummerSlam was in Cleveland. We'll do that 1 week from tomorrow. So just keep in mind for tomorrow night, SummerSlam 1999. Monday night is the go-home show for SummerSlam on Raw. It will be airing on the Sci-Fi Network. The go-home and the post-SummerSlam Raws will both be on Sci-Fi, which kind of sucks as they've been bumped for the Olympic Games. So I don't know if we're going to see anything too crazy on Monday night. So as of now, I'm planning on being here for a Raw review, but there's a chance I might skip it and just do a SummerSlam predictions video the following day instead. So just keep that in mind. I'll take a look at the Raw preview for Monday. We did not have a good audience in here this past Monday for the Raw review, so I'm not going to bother doing it if Raw is going to suck. But I have to get up here anyway next week to predict SummerSlam, so we might tie a Raw review into SummerSlam predictions. That's probably what I'm going to do. So just kind of keep that in mind and stay tuned to the channel so you can see when I'm up, all that good stuff. All right, so that does it for the pleasantries, the shout-outs, the super chats, and the schedule update for you guys. We can start getting into news. How does that sound? Since Luke McAllister brought it up in the super chat, we're going to open with that. We're going to open with the possibility of WWE bringing a WrestleMania to London. Now, we've been doing this on the channel for a long time. I've been up here for over a decade, and I've been asked about international WrestleManias lots of times. 30 times at least over the years, I've been asked, do you think WrestleMania will ever go to specifically London? A lot. That's been the big city, but basically any international show, sometimes not even an international show. I've been asked about Hawaii before. And I've always said, no, I think the time change, the time difference is too much. It's too hard to get to out in the middle of the Pacific. I was just there. And, you know, WWE counts on a lot of fly-in audience, and just having it there in the smack dab middle of the Pacific might not be logistically the best location for WrestleMania. I think you're looking to, you know, bring an economic boom to a city and have people be able to travel from all corners to this thing. And having it in the middle of the ocean just seems a little bit weird. And with the rest of the world, I've always kind of felt like no, because WWE is used to WrestleManias being here in the States, being able to be aired at a time that folks here in the States can watch it. And they've done pay-per-views, SummerSlam 92, famously in London, you know, that they actually had to tape, because back in those days, you could tape shit because it wouldn't get leaked. I think SummerSlam was taped like a full day before or something by the time it aired for us on pay-per-view. So the time stuff has always been a factor in my head. I'm like, you know, WWE probably doesn't want to rock the boat on this tradition that they have for WrestleMania. But times change, and situations and circumstances change. And WWE, you know, after they signed that deal with Saudi Arabia, and they have had a lot of WrestleMania caliber shows in Saudi Arabia, and those are airing at 10 in the morning. They've had your Backlashes and your Money in the Banks and random PLEs outside of the continental U.S., far away, some across the pond. And all of them have performed very, very well. And one thing is 100% sure, the fans always turn out. So if you can imagine, you know, what WWE PLEs internationally have been, Scotland, UK, or, you know, or Scotland or London or the O2, or anything, any venue over there in that part of the world, France, most recently with Backlash, the crowd enthusiasm is just off the chain. I mean, for real. So imagine that crowd, you know, any WWE audience in the O2 or anywhere that they've ran pay-per-views or PLEs recently, and then you combine, or you just magnify that, amplify that times 10 in Wembley, or, you know, in a soccer stadium for WrestleMania, it's probably going to be one of the most fan interactive bonkers WrestleManias we've ever had. It could potentially be like the night after WrestleMania, only at WrestleMania. You're going to have singing. You're going to have the wave. You're going to have beach balls. The fans are going to have the time of their effing lives if WrestleMania comes to London. So I, for one, am more than happy to sacrifice having to wake up early or having a daytime WrestleMania or whatever. I don't care. The fans over there deserve it. Hell, maybe by the time it gets there, I'll even go. We can get this channel grown a little bit more. You know, I'll go over there for work. I write off all my business expenses anyway on my taxes, you know, so whenever I take a trip, I'm like, that's a business trip. So, you know, you never know. Maybe for London, I'll even go over there. If I'm not going, it'll be a trip just to experience that on TV and to watch that. And I really hope it happens in the future. Now, we don't know when. Nick Khan and Triple H flew to London this week to meet with London's mayor, who's also has the last name Khan. I think it's Sadiq Khan. And they had meetings about trying to secure a future WrestleMania in London. Now, these are just preliminary discussions. There was no deals pitched. There was no offers made. I don't even think there was even any concrete discussions on what specific year they're looking at here. I think they're talking about in general, because there's a lot of other cities lining up for WrestleMania. Indianapolis just signed that big 3 pay-per-view deal with WWE. I think they're looking to do a lot more stuff like that to really drive up the revenue and the bidding wars. And since, you know we got Mania in Vegas, we got Indianapolis coming up. I thought Minnesota was going to get a WrestleMania, but I think they're getting SummerSlam instead. When that begins, it's 2-night deal. And then you think about some of the other venues here in the States, they've burned through them all. They don't want to go outdoors anymore in the cold. So you can rule out Philly, rule out New York. stuff like that. So now you're going to have to go south or go to arenas with roofs on them. And we've talked about this endlessly. I love to discuss WrestleManias and venues and where they can be because I'm a big advocate for weather and safety and roofs. Having a roof on your stadium is very important. I'm nervous. I ain't going to lie. I'm nervous about SummerSlam 1 week from tonight. It's in the Cleveland Browns Stadium, right? There ain't no roof on that, is there? It could pour down rain, fucking thunderstorms, tornado blowing through there and kill everybody. It's just too risky to me to be outdoors. We saw what happened at WrestleMania a couple of years ago. We had that freezing ass cold WrestleMania this year in Philly, and I don't like outdoor stuff. So I've always said, you got to go indoors to New Orleans or Atlanta, or go to Florida, or you got to come to SoFi or the stadium in Arizona, or Minneapolis or Indianapolis or Ford Field. Anywhere like that is a stadium that can fill 80,000 people and also has a roof on it is all I thought WWE was going to look for WrestleManias. So that kind of really limited, how many places you can go to here in the States. Eventually, you're going to start going to cities 2, 3, 4 times in some cases when there's so much money to be made elsewhere in other countries across the Atlantic. Go over to the UK and hold a WrestleMania there. And like I said, I think WrestleMania 45 would be a great candidate for London. I think 45th Mania in London would just look cool. London 45 or some logo they could do, WrestleMania 45 in London. It's just it's not a round number. It's just, 45. Not my favorite number considering who the 45th president was. But 45 looks good. And I could see Mania 45 in London. That would be great. And that would be what, 2029, I guess? Or 2028, no, 2029, I think, for WrestleMania 45. If not 45, 50 would be cool. But then you're waiting another 5 years. So if I had to just take a random educated guess or, slightly educated guess, I might say WrestleMania 45 could be in London. And that would be fun. I'd be all for it. I think the crowd would be incredible. I would just love to experience the atmosphere in person, but I think even on television is going to translate really well because all the other PLEs do. And so this is good news. Now, I think this was just, like I said, it was just preliminary meetings. I mean, who knows if the mayor of London is going to be the mayor when this deal gets done. I don't even know if he's the one that can actually sign these deals or do these deals. I'm not sure how any of that stuff works. But the fact that conversations and meetings have been made and Triple H and Nick Khan flew all the way over there just to specifically talk about this is a good sign for London. You guys, I believe now with this meeting being made, they wouldn't make this meeting so public and post photos. Did you see the photos that Triple H and Nick Khan took with the mayor of London? And they gave him that little teeny tiny championship belt. It was this big and they're holding it up like it's a title. It's like a watch. I don't know what that was about. Usually whenever they go somewhere and present some city leader with a belt, it's a real belt. Replicas. They make millions of these things in their factories. But no, they get a little teeny tiny championship belt. When they sign the real deal, I guess that's when they get the big one. But that picture just tickled me. The three of them and this mayor holding this little ass belt. It was just funny. But the fact that Triple H was tweeting things out and that London was tweeting things out, and this was a very public meeting. WWE wanted you to know about this. They wouldn't go through all that just to stick it to London. Okay, we heard what you had to say. Fuck you. We're not coming to your city. No, they wouldn't go through all this if they didn't intend on bringing a WrestleMania to London. So I believe that that's going to be happening. And hopefully, like I said, it should be by WrestleMania 45. I have to answer this phone. 1 second. Hello. Holy crap. Are you guys still there? Thank you for that. Well, that's something that doesn't often happen on a podcast. That was a phone call, and I could tell that was from work and that was important, so I had to answer it. So I just had to hear something real quick, get a little lay of the land, what I'm going to expect when I get in there tonight. Thank you for that, and I'm very sorry for just running away from my chair, but it's like, I can't not answer that one. So sometimes duty calls, that's what happens when you're live. Thank you for your patience. I don't think I've ever done that before. I have never leapt out of my chair to answer the phone before, ever in my life, but that was an important one, just needed to answer it. So there you go. Thank you. Are you guys still here? How many of you left? Everybody will leave? Everybody probably ran out on me, but thank you for that. So we finished up just a minute ago talking about Triple H, Nick Khan flying to London to meet about a potential WrestleMania coming to London. And like I said, I believe WrestleMania 45 would just be the perfect number for that. So we will see if anything materializes in upcoming months or even years. I don't know when the next time, WWE is going to have contacts with officials in London, or, when they can get closer to actually making something happen. But generally these days, when WrestleManias are signed to a city, you kind of know that ahead of time. This year was different because I think they planned for Minneapolis and pivoted to Vegas. But when you hear about the deal that Minneapolis signed for SummerSlam in a couple years, and then Indianapolis, their big deal, you feel like WWE might intend on plotting out some of these WrestleManias, like maybe the next 3 to 5, they want to have cities in mind for, to where even the fans might know where WrestleMania is going to be 4 WrestleManias from now. That actually might be a little bit helpful to the fans who like to plan long term. It would be helpful to me anyway. I mean, if I have a 4-year notice on a London Mania, I can probably make that trip happen if I know 4 years in advance. So we'll see how that shakes out. Anyway, next order of business. This is my favorite story of the week. Oh, I love this. This is so good. Yesterday, Drew McIntyre. You know the social media posts that go, no one, ... absolutely no one, ... no one on earth, ... Drew McIntyre, boom, photograph, a real photograph of Drew McIntyre standing with Jack Perry. Captioning the photo, a real photo, cry us a river. Oh my God, you magnificent bastard, Drew McIntyre. Where the hell is he running into Jack Perry? It's possible that they're all here in my city, in San Diego, because Comic-Con is going on right now. And I've been living here for 14 years, and I've never been to Comic-Con ever. But AEW has a presence here. WWE has a presence here. CM Punk crashed a Danhausen interview with Denise, I think just yesterday. Tony Khan screamed out an All In announcement at us. If you're wondering if Mercedes Moné is going to take on Britt Baker at All In, they are. They're going to face each other. And the reason we know this is because Tony Khan screamed it at us at Comic-Con yesterday. So maybe that's where the photo was taken. Maybe Drew's here, maybe Perry is here. They came together for a picture. And I was pretty blown away by it just because I thought it was awesome. I'm like, that is what makes wrestling fun. Oh my God, I was so happy. Drew was just playing right into this. And of course, social media and fans don't know how to behave when something like this happens. They can't accept how fun this is, how awesome it is. I'm like, holy shit, that is an interesting photo and an interesting caption, and it's taking a real life situation with another company, weaving that reality into the fictional storyline between Punk and Drew. It's all in good fun. I was never once worried about if this was cleared with Punk or whatever. I'm sure it all is fine. Punk is elated. He is extremely happy in WWE. He likes them. They like him. There's no problems there. He's going to be way less agitated and way more willing to, let shit slide or do business or have fun in a WWE environment, because I feel like he feels like he's safe there. And so I saw social media, I don't know, and they're getting all worried, and I sure hope that things are cleared. It's not your job to worry about that. It's your job to have fun. Let's not worry about anything. All I had to do was look at that picture, and just looking at the photo tells me that there is no way at all Drew McIntyre would do this without any sort of understanding or nod from Phil or whatever. Or even if he didn't tell him that he was going to do it, Punk or McIntyre knows that it's not going to bother Punk. That was my take on it. I wasn't really worried about it at all, but all the fans, I sure hope that he's all worried. I got permission or whatever. I'm like, I don't know why y'all do this to yourselves and just don't allow yourselves to have fun. Not everything needs to be analyzed. This was really just a fun trolling photo. What has Drew McIntyre been doing to CM Punk this whole time? Granted, they both have gotten a lot over on each other, but McIntyre has been the more, I think, masterful troll. I think Punk has gotten more over on Drew on television with the stunts that he's pulled, costing him the championship 3 times, that type of thing, where Drew, he's been getting the better of Punk on social media and all of the trolling. He stopped by the muffin place in Chicago that time. He's made some AEW references before. He's made references to Punk's reputation before. None of this is, out of bounds to me. So when he posted that picture, the thing that surprised me the most about it is that he's highlighting Jack Perry, who's an AEW talent, drawing attention to him. I did find that surprising, but at the same time, it was a cool picture. Jack Perry looked like he was a Make-A-Wish kid meeting his hero. He was a teeny tiny little guy compared to McIntyre. He just literally looked like a fan who asked McIntyre to take a picture. The picture was a stark contrast. McIntyre's big and strong and jacked. Perry is not. And the two of them together just look like a dude standing with Drew McIntyre. So it's not like, it's probably the best picture in terms of WWE looking good. But unfortunately, as happy as I was with it, and as much as I even said on Twitter, I'm like, if seeing that photo of McIntyre and Perry brought up any other feelings in you other than happy ones or positive ones, then you are just a miserable person who's unloved and completely allergic to fun. Because this is the type of stuff that should be fun for fans. There's nothing about that photo that should anger you, agitate you, worry you, concern you, anything like that. That picture should make you smile from ear to fucking ear, regardless of what company you have decided to, hitch your cult wagon behind or whatever. It's not tribalism. It's not anything. It's just cool. Because that's a situation that happened in another company. That would be like if, I guess it would be not be the same thing, but I guess if, I don't know, like after the, the Montreal screw job. Well, fuck, they were in different companies by that point. I'm trying to think of a good, comparison to this, but I feel like it's matching what's been going on between Punk and McIntyre. This is the type of thing I would expect McIntyre to tweet because of the nature of their feud and the personal nature of it and what we've seen from them so far. This did not appear to be out of bounds. This just appeared to be really, really cool. Company lines kind of being crossed and blurred there. But my excitement only lasted an hour because the photo was deleted. Before it was deleted, Colt Cabana even quote tweeted it and said something snarky. And then it was after that the photo had been taken down. That is a shame. I have not heard or read or seen anything online about why it was taken down, but my belief is that it had nothing to do with Punk. It had everything to do with WWE. Drew McIntyre probably received a text, hey, get that picture of AEW's wrestler off your Twitter. And he did. I don't think it was Punk mad at all. I'd be willing to bet my left nut that Punk did not give a shit. Probably thought that it added to, the feud and the program or whatnot. I seriously don't think, unless we hear something to the contrary, I seriously doubt in my heart of hearts that CM Punk saw that, got pissed, and tweeted to WWE PR, tell Drew to take that down. There's no way that happened. I believe that it's WWE just not wanting attention drawn to that situation, perhaps, because there's nobody else that would make McIntyre take it down other than him. I don't think he's going to get it. I mean, unless he got a text from Jack Perry, dude, Tony Khan's pissed. Can you please take that down? I'd consider it a personal favor. That could be a possibility, because Drew's like, yeah, of course, man. No problem, So I suppose it could be that Jack Perry himself, like, hey, that picture's getting me heat. That picture's getting me heat with my boss. I'd appreciate if you took it down. I believe it's probably WWE that made him take it down, even though we don't really know. But that's a bummer. But the picture survived long enough. Like, that's what's so dumb about like taking stuff down. Nothing is ever deleted. You know how many screenshots of that were taken instantly once that photo was taken? Once it was deleted, I needed a photo for the thumbnail. It took me 2 seconds to find it. It's everywhere. So that picture isn't going anywhere. It's circulating, and Drew McIntyre taking it down isn't making it go anywhere. Didn't I read a story about, like, isn't there like a porn star or something that like wants all of her videos deleted? I'm like, good luck with that. I don't think that can happen. I don't think there's a such thing as that. So, with WWE, making him take it down, I'm like, okay, fine, but the damage has already been done. And I thought the picture was cool. And if WWE was cool, they'd let it stay up. And that's why I am a little bit surprised. If it was them that instructed him to take it down, that feels more like a Vince WWE that would have made him do that than a Triple H WWE. I know. I think with this feud, because it's the biggest match WWE currently has, it's not even for the championship, but I think it's the most interesting and most intriguing program and storyline and feud WWE has going. And they got a few good ones going, but this one I believe is the best. Or at least currently, at least as we sit right now. And one of the participants in this feud hasn't even wrestled all year. That's how good this shit is. So I think when you have a feud that can be this good, this fun, this exciting, that you should be allowed to color outside the lines a little bit. And if this was a Triple H decision or some WWE management decision, I wish they would have let him leave it up, because what is the harm? It harms no one. It's victimless. Let them have some fun. Let this storyline, let this feud have, become immortalized. I mean, when this thing is over, I hope that in 3 years from now, we're looking back at this feud fondly. Man, remember that fucking Punk and McIntyre feud? Remember how good that was back in 2024? I want to be able to say that one day. And all of these little pieces and things that they do is all part of this big just ball of yarn of story that these guys have that's really, really fun. And I just wish that McIntyre was not instructed, at least I believe he was instructed, to delete the photo, unless he himself decided, better not do this. But I think it was probably WWE going like, bro, you got to take that down. And that sucks, man. I was hoping the new TKO version of WWE would, have a little bit more fun than this. I mean, we've seen the crossover with TNA. So it's more of like, the top competitor to them, they're either going to try to stunt their growth or be more likely to have some sort of like malicious act on them, leaking out some of their crap, the Fast Nationals garbage, and apparently WWE PR, trying to tell people what's up with AEW's media rights deal and things like that. Tony Khan's pretty pissed about that, or at least he was in the Ring of Honor media call. So it feels like with, some of the smaller promotions, WWE's open to not only knowing and admitting they exist, but also working with them. But if you're the top threat to them, they're going to do everything to hold you down or insult you or pretend you don't exist. So it's funny to me that they've got TNA champions on NXT, but they tell Drew to delete a photo of an out-of-character AEW wrestler on his Twitter. Like, where's the line? Why is this okay? This is not. That type of stuff. I just think it's kind of lame, and I wish the picture would have stayed up, but it's my absolute favorite story of the week. Loved that picture of Drew McIntyre and Jack Perry. Great, great stuff. That's why wrestling is great. That's why competition is great. That's why when you have two competing companies that are basically competing for the same talent and have the same level of wallet and checkbook to work with, that makes the competition interesting, because WWE is too big for anybody to truly compete with them on the size level. But with Tony Khan, with fuck you money, and with unlimited funds, arguably more than WWE even has, he can compete with anybody financially. And that's what is kind of keeping them in the game right now, especially with some of the talent that they're able to secure or sign, or free agents they're able to get, and keep their roster very, very, very strong. They got to put some of that other stuff together, work on their stories and work on their product presentation and whatnot. They've got some issues there, but in terms of talent and just being there and being a competitor, that's giving us chances as fans to see people jump ship, sign with one company, leave one company, go to the other. In the short amount of time AEW's been around, think of the names: the Codys, the Jades, the Punks, the Malakais, the Regals, and all the different back and forth stuff, the Coles and the Danielsons, Ethan Page, Sean Spears. There's been a ton already. So think about, fast forward 5 years in the future from now. Think about where we're sitting by the time WrestleMania gets over to London. Think about what the two rosters are going to look like then. Maybe we get a WrestleMania and All In combo show. A buy one, get one free extravaganza. That's what we need. So, wrestling is all about fun. The Perry and McIntyre picture to me was fun. What was not fun is that it was deleted. Makes me mad. Makes me sad. But anyway, that was my favorite story of the week. Speaking of CM Punk, there was a bunch of shit going on this week too about his contract. Really nothing to report here, although I want to read you a couple of things because it was initially reported by Meltzer. In one of his reports, he said two things in the same sentence. He said that his contract is up now. He said, as far as CM Punk's contract goes, it's up now, but time was added to it, so it's not up now. I'm like, well, which is it up now or is it not up now? And if it was up now, when the hell did he debut? Survivor Series, right? What are we looking at? 9 months? 8 months? That's how long his contract has been? Who signs 8-month contracts? So that initial kind of report was like, what is he talking about? And I thought when Punk signed at Survivor Series, I thought it was like a 3-year deal, and apparently that is what it is. Now, there was rumors of Punk wanting to maybe restructure his deal. Those turned out to be false. Punk even himself kind of sort of addressed this in an Instagram post where, just talking about, false shit being out there about him and him, monitoring it. And he's usually, not so quick to worrying about defending himself, but he felt like he had to here. So we really weren't sure what was going on with this contract. I wasn't thinking that there was anything to worry about Punk's contract, at least yet, because he's been injured. It's not even been a year yet, and I figured he'd sign a 3-year deal. So I went to our friends, the good old reliable Fightful Select. Best $5 you'll ever spend. I give them more than that per month, but if you just want to read the basic news, you can do it for $5 over on FS. So check out Select, well worth your money. Here's what they said about Punk and this contract situation. Now, our friend Ibu of Wrestle Purists also made some statements about this as well. Here's what Fightful Select said. This week, word emerged via Ibu of Wrestle Purists that CM Punk was in talks to adjust his current WWE deal. This led to a lot of discussing and editorializing that Punk was already trying to renegotiate his deal that he signed in November of 2023. We're told that isn't the case. Regarding injury time being added, it's tough to tell without seeing the contract itself, but people close to Punk were quick to note that Punk hasn't actually stopped working for WWE the time that he's been out. He's been made appearances on Raw, SmackDown, PLE shows, even worked internationally, worked on commentary and pre-shows, and went to NXT numerous times and actually volunteered to do so. Thus far, we've heard that CM Punk has overcome the reputation that he had coming back to WWE and has been very easy to deal with. And that's something that we've been able to tell and see ourselves with our own eyes. One WWE source said that many of the promo lines thrown his way would have likely been an issue last year, but that Punk has handled it well and knows that he's in the midst of a hot angle. It's worth noting that we've not heard significant updates on this element since Drew McIntyre posted a picture of himself and Jack Perry before deleting it. This week, McIntyre did that and outright named Colt Cabana while speaking about Punk. That's right, he did, which has always been something most in the company have stayed away from. Regarding his deal, we're told by sources that Punk's WWE deal is not up imminently, and the company approached him about the possibility of expanding the deal as business had exploded and there are more elements that can be worked in. So, he came in right at the tail end of Vince McMahon last year and all of that. So, now that it's a new company, with new visions, new ideas, and new elements, a restructured deal could just restructure him and extend him longer than he's currently slated, which I believe is a 3-year deal. So it's probably him just trying to work out, maybe a 5 or maybe even a 10-year deal to finish up his complete career in WWE as a wrestler, maybe announcer or, backstage producer, or I don't know, something like that. But I feel like Punk, he is too valuable. His voice is too valuable on the microphone to be done with wrestling when he's done in the ring. You know what I mean? Like when he can no longer wrestle anymore, which I don't think is going to be much longer. I very much worry about Punk's physical health and his ability to stay healthy and injury free, given the age that he's in, and he's never really been the greatest athlete to begin with. You wonder how much gas he really does have left in the tank. And when he is completely done in the ring, the last thing I want to see is him disappear like Tony Schiavone did for 18 years or whatever. I think Punk should stay in wrestling somehow, or maybe even, wrestle late into his 50s or something, super occasionally, like maybe like we might see Danielson wind up doing. But I certainly hope that Punk can wrap up his career and finish things off, at the show. WWE's the biggest game in town. He'll never go back to AEW. So in terms of legacy preservation and whatnot, WWE is absolutely where CM Punk should want to stay and finish out his entire wrestling career right here where he is. Now, it does mention that the Jack Perry and McIntyre photo, and with Colt Cabana kind of being mentioned here, these are all things, or at least Colt Cabana. Colt Cabana really seems to be a fuse lighter for Punk. Any mention of Colt Cabana or using his name in a trolling capacity at all usually sets Punk off. However, I think it's just different in WWE. I think him coming there, he knows that WWE, the machine, isn't going to create the same atmosphere and problems that he saw in AEW, where you have a lot of people just doing what they want. And when you start going off script, or what Punk perceives as going off script, or mentioning somebody's name that triggers him or whatever, I've said right when Punk started, right when he came back last year, what was the one thing I said? I said he is going to be on Hulk Hogan 2002 behavior. He is going to do business. He's not going to be caring about losing too much. He's going to be here to be on his best behavior, to try to show the current roster that this reputation that he has had is not who he is. And Hulk Hogan came in 2002 with a lot of that reputation. And if you notice, he did a lot of losing. Now, they put the title on him because I feel like they felt they had to. But aside from winning the title from Triple H, he didn't win a lot. He was losing a lot. Lost to The Rock at WrestleMania. Lost to the title to The Undertaker, tapped out to Kurt Angle, lost to Brock. He was on a losing tour there. But then after that first year was up and he became Mr. America and we had the problems, and then he came back, that's when the creative control kicked back in and we had that debacle at SummerSlam 2005 with Shawn Michaels. So hopefully, Punk doesn't, have like a year honeymoon where he's just all cooperative. And then once he's there, he's stable, he's familiar with the surroundings, and he's confident and comfortable, he's going to start being an asshole again. I just don't see that with CM Punk. He just doesn't strike me like that's where he wants his energy to go. I definitely think Punk has issues with grudges and anger and things like that. But in terms of them exploding and fucking up his career, I think Punk is smarter than that. So when it comes to the picture with Jack Perry and even the mention of Colt Cabana, I feel like from Punk's perspective inside of the WWE bubble, it's all okay. It's all fair because Punk is not stupid and Punk sees what we all see. And what we see is this Punk and McIntyre feud is one of the best things we've seen all year. And there's been some great shit. The beginning of the year was a roller coaster with The Rock and the Bloodline and Cody and Roman and all that stuff. It has not been a bad 2024 at all. And this, to me, easily in terms of the feud, even with Punk not being in the ring, he's been injured since the Royal Rumble. He's been injured for 7 months. He's been on the shelf and he's still made this feud very interesting. Screwing Drew at WrestleMania, screwing him at Clash at the Castle, the back and forth trolling. Some of the physicality that we have seen with Punk getting beat up and, some of the brawls and the pull aparts and all of that. And now with this new added extra bonus with Seth Rollins being the referee, who knows how that match now is going to look at SummerSlam, but it's probably the most anticipated match. Somebody mentioned on Monday in the chat if I thought that match could be the main event. And I said adamantly no. I'm like, no, you got two world champions on this card. You got Gunther's probably going to be crowned. You got Cody in a match with Solo that's probably going to lead to the return of Roman Reigns. I feel like that's probably going to be your main event. But in terms of the strength of the match that most fans are more interested above any other match on the card, then yeah, this is the main event. But I don't know if they can make it the main event. I honestly don't, but you never know. They might put this match on last, but if they're going to tie in a Roman Reigns return, that's got to be last. So unless they are planning on having Roman come back at SummerSlam and then they're realizing how big this match is and they're going to say, okay, we're going to make Punk and Drew the main event and we're just going to hold off Roman's return for Raw. Yeah, Raw. At some point, they're going to have to start building that Bloodline Civil War, right? Right before the draft, Paul Heyman made it very clear that Roman Reigns was withdrawing from the draft. Technically, he is a free agent. So if he needs to recruit a Jey Uso or a Sami Zayn, he has the storyline freedom to do that. He can show up on Raw. So maybe, you don't even bring him back at SummerSlam. You could hold it off, but I still think Roman needs to come back at SummerSlam. And then as the bloodline stuff builds, he will have the ability and the freedom to perhaps be on Raw a couple of times to recruit some team members. We'll have to see how all that goes down. So that's the latest there with CM Punk. Buddy Matthews. This is an interesting story. Buddy Matthews apparently has re-upped with AEW, and he did so not recently. He did so several months ago. So that's interesting and surprising. Now, again, it's our friends at WrestlePurists were the ones to break this news and the first to report that he re-signed a new deal a few months ago. Now, he initially wanted to leave, tried to give his notice to AEW so he could go back to WWE. AEW did not grant that wish, making him, fulfill his contract back when they had that kind of policy that they're not going to let people go back to WWE. Those who have buyer's remorse and decided they don't want to be there, he's not going to just let them go back. So during that time, I guess Tony Khan offered Buddy Matthews a very lucrative new deal that he accepted. So that's pretty interesting for him. I mean, his girl is there, his wife is there, getting all up on Dom and whatnot. I mean, seeing Rhea Ripley on Monday just made me realize how sick and tired I am of not being Buddy Matthews. So dude's a lucky man. I kind of thought he might want to come back to the company, and I think it's gross and kind of irresponsible to try to put yourself in somebody's relationship and tell them how they should do things. I'm just trying to envision if I was in their shoes. I look at me and Elizabeth. If we were both wrestlers, I would feel way more comfortable if we were working for the same company, because if not, we might see each other 3 days a month, and that's just going to be really hard to do. With your conflicting schedules, even if you're off, she might not be. If she's off, you might not be. And to actually have time together, I feel like would be difficult. But at the same time, you're only young once. You got a window of opportunity to make your big money. And sometimes that's what you got to do too. So Buddy Matthews, again, this is just baseless, wild Greg speculation. No evidence of this or not at all. This is just me brainstorming here, thinking maybe what the situation might be. Rhea Ripley is becoming an icon in WWE. She's making big time main event money. If Buddy Matthews was to leave AEW and go back to WWE, what kind of contract would be offered to him? It's not like he's coming in as a main eventer. He didn't really improve his situation in AEW. He's a great talent. He's an amazing talent who absolutely should be given top opportunities, but he was never really given that in WWE. Couple little tests. He had a great match with Roman one night on SmackDown. Won the Cruiserweight title in Australia, I think. So he's had a couple of moments or whatever, but in terms of, going to AEW, building up his stock, maybe like Cody did or like, somebody else did, he really didn't do that. They would be large. If he was going to go back to WWE, I feel like WWE would be signing the same Buddy Matthews that they had before and probably going to offer him a similar deal to what he had before, just adjusted for, inflation of 2024 or whatever, the money amounts to now. So if Tony Khan is like, look, I want to keep you and I'll offer this, Buddy Matthews might see the deal that Tony Khan offered him and say, there's no way WWE is going to offer me more than that. Even if they match this deal, the amount of dates are going to have to work are going to be triple what I'm working now. So he might realize that the best way for him and Rhea Ripley together as a couple to make the most money together is for him to stay in AEW. He's probably getting big money from AEW. He might not be getting big money or as big money in WWE, and he certainly would not be being paid as much as Rhea Ripley. He's probably still not being paid as much as her from Tony Khan's end, but it's probably a sizable amount to where this sounds like a financial decision to me. Because what has changed in AEW behind the scenes from your perspective as a fan that you think that Buddy Matthews would change his tune and say, oh, no, I want to be here now. Tony Khan's like, what if I just give you all this money? Oh, okay. I mean, you'll stay at a job you hate if you get paid enough. I don't really love my job these days. I mean, it's not hard. I have a very cushy job, but it's gotten a little bit harder. We've undergone some changes, but the money's good. So I'm like, well, it's paying me good. What what can I do? So it might be a situation like that with Buddy, to where you see this offer and like, well, I can't turn that down, okay. So that's the deal, I guess. So I guess, if this is confirmed, or this turns out to be confirmed, Buddy will be sticking around in AEW. Sounds like Malachi still wants to go, although I think he's got some time left still on his deal. So if Malachi fully intends on going back to WWE, of course, he also has a spouse there in Zelina Vega. If he intends on going back to WWE, and that's coming up within the next several months or whatever it is, then you got a storyline waiting here for Buddy Matthews to, excommunicate, Malachi from the House of Black. Maybe the House of Black continues with Buddy and Brody, and they bring in a new guy. Maybe Adam Copeland can come back at the same time Malachi is leaving, and maybe give another shot to that Judgment Day thing, only this time in AEW with the House of Black. And maybe Copeland can try again with that, because, they made him turn face and when he was in the Judgment Day, and he briefly turned heel in WWE. So maybe he can get another shot at it. Imagine Adam Copeland heading up the House of Black, and then Lashley comes in with the Hurt Business. Oh my God, it could be a lot of fun there. So just an idea, maybe just an idea of a way to get Buddy in a storyline and use Malachi's exit as a way to do that and elevate him, and have maybe Adam Copeland come in, lead the group for a while, and then Buddy take over at some point, leading to some big Copeland and Matthews match where Matthews beats him, and now he's the new leader of House of Black, assuming this faction even exists this long. But it could be a way of Buddy, being second fiddle twice now to two different leaders of this faction, and then finally being fed up and say, hey, I'm the only one delivering here. Maybe they'll put him on a winning streak where Malachi isn't looking so good, or Copeland isn't looking so good. And it eventually leads to Buddy not only beating Malachi and sending him out of the group, but then doing the same thing to Adam Copeland. Just a thought. If Tony Khan is going to pony up and pay this guy a bunch of money, you might want to do something with him. Instead of just having him in six-mans on Rampage or Collision every week, maybe find something more significant for him to do. There's a lot of singles championships in the company. How many singles titles currently exist in AEW right now? 17. I count 17 singles championships in AEW right now. Just have Buddy win one of those. He could still be in House of Black. Anyway, speaking of AEW, we may or may not have some news on their media rights deal. The first thing we have to talk about, even though it's not wrestling related, it affects wrestling, is NBA finalizing their deal with Amazon. But prior to them finalizing the deal with Amazon, they had a deal in place that, I guess, per the contract or the previous rights deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, WBD had the option to match the offer. They did match the offer, but NBA declined the offer and just chose to go with Amazon. Some people mentioned when this happened that we could see a lawsuit, because apparently Warner Brothers Discovery has the right to match it. They did. And then NBA decided to say, no, F you, we're leaving anyway. So, and this is just for one of their sports packages. They're already going to NBC Universal. We know that. We've already seen advertisements and commercials with the John Tesh song all back in its form. So the NBA on NBC is returning, but it's this other package of games that I guess Warner Brothers and Amazon are competing for. So this is a report from CNBC this week. Here's what they said. The media company seeks to prevent the NBA, Warner Brothers Discovery, that is, seeks to prevent the NBA from awarding the rights to Amazon, whose games package Warner Brothers Discovery tried to match or aims to win monetary damages. The NBA said Wednesday it had reached agreements with Disney and NBC Universal and Amazon on 3 different packages of games, ending its nearly 40-year relationship with WBD and Turner Sports. The 11-year media rights deal is roughly worth $77 billion, a massive increase over the previous agreement as the value of live sports booms. In response to the suit, NBA spokesman Mike Bass said, Warner Brothers Discovery's claims are without merit and our lawyers will address them. WBD said earlier this week it submitted paperwork to the league to match one of the packages, which people familiar with the matter identified as the $1.8 billion per year group of games earmarked for Amazon. The tech giant's deal includes regular season games, the in-season tournament, and some playoff games. The NBA granted the NBA granted WBD matching rights when it signed its previous media deal in 2014. The provision is meant to give an incumbent company the right of last refusal to maintain its position as a media partner. But Warner Brothers Discovery's decision to match the Amazon package rather than the $2.5 billion per year NBC Universal package caused the league to say Wednesday that the matching rights are invalid. WBD, their offer for that package involves airing NBA games on its cable network TNT and simulcasting them on its streaming service Max. That's not an apples-to-apples comparison to Amazon Prime Video, which is a streaming-only service, the league argued. So I guess what they're saying here is if they would have matched the NBC Universal agreement, then that would have been valid. But since there's streaming involved, what the contract wrote up in 2014, it invalidates that, I suppose. So in a letter the NBA sent to Warner Brothers Discovery on Wednesday, the league pointed to the contractual language of the 2020 or the 2014 matching rights as its reason for rejecting the offer. So this will have to be taken up in courts with the lawyers. Sounds like Warner Brothers Discovery is not going to have a leg to stand on here if it doesn't really specifically mention anything about streaming in that 2014 deal. So how this affects wrestling is the same way we've been assuming it's going to affect wrestling the whole time. These two deals are not tied to each other. One is not going to get done without the other. If they lose the NBA, that doesn't mean they have a ton of extra money to spend on AEW now. They aren't connected in that way. But I've always maintained that I just truly don't believe that Warner Brothers Discovery is going to sign the new media rights deal for AEW until the NBA stuff is resolved. And now that it looked like it was resolved, but now we got this lawsuit, I'm like, shit, now we have to wait for this to go through any court proceedings before Warner Brothers Discovery puts pen to paper with AEW, because they might want to beef up the deal. They might want to change the deal. I believe the deal is going to happen, but if they lose the NBA completely, maybe that gives AEW an option to beef up their deal. Maybe it's AEW's side of things who are waiting. The sides are talking and discussions are productive. There's really no fear on either side that a deal won't get done. But, from AEW's side, they're trying to get a big rights increase so their company can finally turn a profit after only 5 years. Biggest companies in the world take a lot longer than that to draw profit. So if that's one of their main goals here is to get enough in media rights revenue to make sure the company makes money, or, if they want to wait and make sure that the NBA is not coming in, well, now we got a chance to, really put the pedal to the metal on trying to get a streaming deal done, because as a fan, that's all I really give a shit about, to be honest. I'm not worried about AEW leaving cable TV. They're going to be on cable TV somewhere. They're probably going to stay right where they are. Maybe a 2% chance they leave, but I doubt it. So that was never a real concern for me. What's my concern is where we can start streaming this company. They've got a pretty extensive video library now that they've been around for 5 years. They've got 5 years of just terrific pay-per-views, banger after banger after banger pay-per-view, especially those first few years there. Still to this day, I've yet to watch an AEW pay-per-view that I have not enjoyed. The worst pay-per-view from AEW I've ever seen, I think I gave a B- to. So they are solid on pay-per-view. And I want access to that library. Now, granted, I bought them all on Bleacher Report. I can access them there. But it'd be way easier if we could just access them on Max or something that's just more readily available to us as consumers, streaming platforms, and things like that, to where you can watch past Dynamites, past Rampages, past pay-per-views, and where you can stream future pay-per-views. Maybe at a discounted price. You might not be able to do what Peacock does and give us all the pay-per-views for free, but what if they were $15 with the subscription to Max? That's going to come down to more than half the price, or less than half the price of what it would be buying it on pay-per-view. So things like that is what I'm most interested in. Now, speaking of that media rights deal, that apparently has been imminent for months now with AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery. Tony Khan talked about it yesterday on the, or I think Thursday, on the Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor media call. Now, Brandon Thurston, who always has great information on all this stuff, he asked Tony about the rumors of the deal being done in principle, and Tony Khan said not yet. So we already heard rumblings, I think last week, that a deal was pretty much done, just needs to be signed, dotting I's, crossing T's, that type of thing. According to Tony Khan, not quite yet. But Tony also kind of mentioned and expressed some displeasure with WWE and their PR spreading false information about the deal. Said that a major member of the wrestling media told him that WWE is telling people the deal is done. And basically, Tony Khan just said they should stay the fuck out of it. It's not even their business. And so those are the type of things that WWE has always done. When you see these fans online complaining, AEW can't stop talking about WWE, you got no idea at all what's really going on and how WWE, they do their warring, in a different way. When it comes to, being at war with another company, they do a lot of, underhanded things. They use their power to, influence and to stunt the growth of companies. It's been proven, and outlined several times of them doing this in the past. It's what they do. And if they can do, internal things and they have abilities to harm AEW in any way or just cause them problems, they're going to do that. And a lot of it is real sneaky, and sometimes it's malicious, and sometimes it's just stupid and pointless. And, they bought and paid for that Alfred fucker on social media, with that Fast Nationals garbage. And they are constantly trying to, control narratives and whatnot. And that's all part of competition. I mean, it's all fair game in my mind. WWE, they might be shitty for doing those things, but that's kind of what they've always done. And the company grew on them just being ruthless and cutthroat. That's how WWE became who they were. So I can let a lot of shit go when it comes to that. So I'm not really upset or offended that WWE does these things, because it's what WWE always does. I'm a fan. I'm trying to enjoy the product of both companies as a fan. And I don't want to get caught up too much in what they're doing behind the scenes, but this is pretty typical of WWE. It's these little things that they do. And I think they do it specifically just to irritate Tony Khan. And that's petty. WWE is petty. They're both petty. Companies can both behave badly from time to time, but no fan should be telling themselves that the company you like does everything right and never does anything wrong, and the company you hate does everything wrong. Regardless of what side of the fence you're on, if you think that way, you're dumb, because that's not the reality. Just the reality you want it to be. Speaking of the Comic-Con here in San Diego, I mentioned it's here, and there's a lot of WWE and AEW presence there. We saw CM Punk crashing the Danhausen interview with Denise today or yesterday. He also had a nice moment on stage with Zoe Stark. They're sitting there on a panel or something, and she breaks down into tears about, being in the WWE and actually being on the same roster as him and what he meant to her, and nice little wholesome moment there between the two. And on the AEW side of things, you had everybody was there. Swerve was there, Ospreay was there, Tony Khan was there, Mercedes was there, and so was Britt Baker. Britt and Mercedes got in each other's faces. They had to be separated, big pull apart, and that's when Tony Khan got on the microphone and screamed at us, "Do you guys want to see London, Britt?" Making myself cough. Britt and Mercedes in London, and yells at us that match is going to be official for All In, and Mercedes goes nuts. And I'm sure there's lots of other fun stuff that happened. I'm not even sure. I'm guessing that's where the McIntyre Perry picture got taken. Where else would that picture have been taken? Where would McIntyre and Jack Perry be? I mean, it didn't really look like an airport. So I feel like they're here in town doing Comic-Con stuff. So I'm sure there's more than that has happened at Comic-Con, but those are some of the things that I have seen and that I've noticed on social media from the festivities here in the whale's vagina. WWE right now, part of the reason why SmackDown was taped last night is because they are currently doing a tour of Japan. They're probably heading back now since Raw is in 2 days. But I forgot which city they were in, but Cody Rhodes at the live event in Japan was gifted a robe that his dad wore, a Dusty Rhodes robe that his dad wore when he faced Antonio Inoki way back in the day. So you're talking late 70s, probably, based on the look of this robe. And it had the hat, that's the Dusty look. That's the Dusty look I first laid my eyes on as a child. A lot of fans think it's polka dots. It's not. It's the robe and the floppy hat. That's Dusty, especially early Dusty. And Cody put it on, looked good. It was well preserved. I think that's so awesome that not only they had that robe, but they gave it to him. I'm curious how it got handed down. If Dusty left it there, this is yours now, baby. You keep it here. Thank you for having me in Japan, baby. And then they just kept it all this time, and then they gave it to Cody. But Cody put on the hat. Didn't look nearly as good as his dad did in that, but it was something that I really, really like to see. I'm a big, big Dusty Rhodes fan. We have some more WWE contract news. Beth Phoenix officially gone from WWE, and according to PW Insider, her contract is up and she is a free agent. So she has now finally finished up her duties, which at this point I think was either a Legends deal or some sort of light talent deal. I'm not really sure, but it was kind of tying her to WWE to the point where I don't think she could appear on camera for AEW. Now that she's a free agent, I think it would be cool to see her turn up there at some point with Adam Copeland in AEW. She's still in amazing shape. I don't think she would be looking to sign like a wrestler full-time contract and start on the main roster in AEW. I don't think it's that. I think she could come in and get involved in whatever future storylines Adam Copeland does, possibly even have a match with somebody, maybe Beth Phoenix and what's her name? What's the little shit's mom's name? Not Mama Rhodes, but Mama Wayne. Mama Wayne. Maybe she beats the shit out of Mama Wayne. That might be kind of fun. And I think if she did turn up, what is Beth Phoenix's real name? Would they call her Beth? What would they call her? If she showed up, I think it would probably just be in the context of Adam Copeland's feud. So we'll see if she shows up, but now that she's a free agent, she could at least appear in AEW. That will be cool if that ever happens. AEW, speaking of them, Bryan Danielson, of course, he has a championship match at All In against Swerve Strickland that he might be working without a contract. There was a sit-down interview he did on AEW's YouTube channel with Renee Paquette where he mentioned that his contract is up August 1st. And that's before All In. Now, that's his wrestler contract. I think that Danielson is probably under 2 contracts because he does have a behind-the-scenes role. He was on the committee that decided to fire CM Punk. He's been handing out fines. So I think he actually has a backstage role that he has a completely separate agreement for. So him working without a contract is probably not that big a deal in terms of fear that Danielson's going to jump to WWE and go over there. He even said in the interview that he's not trying to do the MJF thing and trying to take the most money. And he said this was going to be his final full-time year, but he's also said that he wants to wrestle, until he's old occasionally. So I think Danielson's going to be somebody that's never going to be fully out of the ring. That's great. I'm glad that All In isn't going to be his final match. I'm glad we don't only have one more month of Danielson left, that we probably will see him again. But in terms of what kind of wrestler agreement he signs next, he doesn't really have one. So he's going to wrestle Swerve at All In, and I'm assuming he's going to lose, right? After that, then maybe it's some time off until he decides what else he wants to do. But I kind of hope he keeps going a little longer. We still never got that match with Nigel McGuinness. Maybe that comes. Maybe Danielson takes a full year off and works with Nigel next year at All In or something like that. Don't really know. But whatever he does, we wish him the best. And what we see from him at All In could very well be the last thing we see from Danielson in the ring for at least a little while. But we'll keep our eye on Danielson. And then after All In, if he has not yet signed a new wrestler agreement, I'm curious if he's still going to be a presence behind the scenes because he is an employee there and he has backstage responsibilities. So I'm assuming that just continues on, right? I assume it will. We love Danielson, though. Looking forward to that match against Swerve, primarily because Danielson is a Hall of Famer. Danielson's an icon. He's arguably the best wrestler in the world and has been for the past 15 years. And that's going to be a big win for Swerve. That's going to be a big win for Swerve, who I was pleased to see at Blood and Guts, the way they booked him in that match. He was dominant like a champion should be. So that's a big one for Swerve. And then after All In, I think Swerve will be officially ripe. But beating Danielson is absolutely something that I think he should do and probably will do. Also want to offer big congratulations to AEW announcer Tony Schiavone, one of our all-time favorites here on the channel. He was presented with the Gordon Solie Award at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. Very prestigious honor. He now joins Jim Ross and a lot of great wrestling announcers to hold that award. They had a nice little video package, where his family was talking about his dedication and his passion to pro wrestling and kind of detailing his 18-year absence. He was gone from the night WCW closed its doors until AEW opened its doors. He never worked in TNA, did he? Did he ever do any appearances? I'm not even sure if he did appearances for any pro wrestling company the entire time. I know he did some baseball announcing and whatnot, but he was largely out of the pro wrestling spotlight altogether for 18 years before coming back to AEW. And I swear it's like he hasn't missed a beat. He's still the same old Tony, where with Jim Ross, there's a noticeable difference between 1999 Jim Ross or, prime Jim Ross. In 99, he was dealing with his Bell's palsy. But, prior to 99 and even after 99, 2001, 2002, think about that Jim Ross compared to the Jim Ross we hear now whenever he turns up on AEW TV. It's not the same person. Schiavone very much is. He still has that voice. And he's a name. He's a name that I remember as a kid, growing up watching him in the NWA and WCW. Then he came to WWE for a year. And then he called Nitro for all those years. And his infamous butts and seats line. And I like Tony because he's kind of like a regular guy. And he's fucking disgusting. I listened, like the only time I listened to his podcast with Conrad, I listened to like 1 or 2 episodes. And he just openly, like it's nothing. Like it's no big deal. Like this is a totally common thing that happens to all of us. He just decides to tell this story about how he came out, he took a nice shower, and he sat down on the bed with his towel, and his wife walks in. But he goes, before I had to take a shower, I kind of had to take a shit. But I decided to take a shower anyway. And then I sat down on the bed, and I shit out a turd onto the carpet right in front of my wife. And she looked at me and she goes, well, did you just shit on the floor? And I was like, yeah. And she called him like a heathen or something like that. And he said, his wife just laid into him about what a fucking disgusting animal he is. And I'm like, just to openly tell that story is why Schiavone's awesome. There's no fucks to be given. He doesn't care. He's a regular dude, does gross stuff, poops on the floor, probably whacks off the porn, all that stuff. So I think Schiavone is just a funny guy. I've always liked him. And he cracks me up on commentary. Some of those early days of AEW, one of my favorite things they've ever done was the little pulley system with the notes from Britt Baker to Schiavone back and forth from the announce table to her wheelchair or whatever she was doing back then. It's like moments like that. Schiavone is just amazing. I'm a big Tony Schiavone fan. Congrats to him on that award. I mean, Tony worked with Gordon Solie. So did Jim Ross. So that's probably a pretty big honor if you're a Schiavone or if you're an announcer that wins this award, to hold the award named after Gordon. That's pretty cool. So anyway, congrats to Schiavone on the honor. So that's pretty much all I have for my wrestling news portion of this. We do have some other things to get into as well. Like I want to talk a little bit about Blood and Guts. But before I do that, I've been talking a lot and have not been to the chat lately. So let me just crow over here and knock out a super chat that I see. Give this a refresh. If you guys could do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button for me, I would appreciate it. And I do have a super chat to answer from the Juliet. Thank you so much for the $5. Yes, Miko Satomura announces retirement next April of 2025. She just worked. When did that match with Bailey happen? I think that's happened. That's maybe that happened today. I'll have to check that out. Also, Viva la Olympics in Paris. Yeah, I haven't watched the Olympics in forever. I watch the summer games maybe a little bit more than the winter ones, but it's been a long time since I've cared about the Olympics. Maybe the last time I really tuned in was, I don't know, maybe when the Michael Phelps stuff was going on, maybe. But I did see, I don't know anything about that metal band that performed, but that was badass. The way they're all like standing on the balconies of that palace or whatever it is, and had the flames, you know? I was like, I thought that was pretty cool. And then, of course, a lot of people got all uppity about the opening ceremonies last night. I could give two shits. It's Paris. It's the Olympics. Who cares what they do? Getting offended about the opening ceremonies depicting the Last Supper is something a snowflake would do. So I don't care. But I probably won't watch much of the Olympics at all. Maybe tomorrow during the watch along. We'll put on some swimming. It's like, all right, looks like USA is winning this one, and I'll try to call the Olympics just for fun. Just for fun. But thanks, Juliet, for being here as always. Reading some of these previous comments. Yeah, JP are reckless. I think this all ends in a settlement. That could be a possibility, you know, because I don't really know much about, like, you'd have to read the contract and know about this stuff. Lawyers are probably going to have to hash this out. And maybe on NBA's side, they've just decided they don't want to be in business with them anymore. So they're like, if we have to pay them a settlement to get out of this, so be it. So yeah, Warner Brothers Discovery could just get a settlement, but I understand why they're trying to hang on to the NBA. I think a lot of fans loved the NBA on TNT. I did. I love the studio show. I love the song, all that stuff. But, you know, times change. This is a business. Money talks, and things get weird, you know. JJ Leg, good to see you. Beth Thunderbird. That's a good match for Beth Phoenix. Beth Thunderbird. Gilbert, that's a good one. I like that. Oh, yeah, Zane G. Good point. She could just call her Elizabeth. Rodrigo, was Tony in WWE in 1992? No, he was only there for like a year, 89 to 90. Hell, I think he was gone by 90. I think he was just gone, or he was just there just for the year of 89. No, he was there a little bit into 90. He called the Royal Rumble. So I'd say I'd put him there like 1 year. I think that's all he was there. And then he went back where he belongs, really. All the best to Keith Lee, who I think is still working on getting himself back into the ring. Sounds like his contract might be nearing its completion in AEW as well. If I was him, I would absolutely go back to WWE if I could. Triple H always liked him. You know, I worry about Keith Lee's window now. I just do. I just don't know if there's much left for him to become the star we thought he could be. But I hope there is. And him getting back to WWE, he'll have his wife there. Might be a better environment. And plus, you know, we know how Triple H feels about him. Pushed him, smashed him over like a megastar when he was in NXT. So we will see. We were here this past Monday, by the way, talking about Raw. So if you haven't seen my Raw review on Monday, go check that out. And we talked about the Rollins, you know, being announced as a special referee for Punk and Drew and everything surrounding that. And we also talked about the segment that we saw in the ring where Dominic gets drugged out to the ring by Rhea Ripley. Liv Morgan comes up into the stands, taunts the both of them, shakes her little booty. And that's when Dom chews her out, says, "I hate you. I want nothing to do with you. You're stupid." And yells at her until she is in tears and runs away. And then Mommy, of course, is elated by this turn of events and gives Dominic a nice, big, healthy lick on his face. So I have speculated, because I think a lot of people have felt like Dom is probably going to turn on Rhea and join Liv Morgan. And if that's the case, if Dominic is going to be leaving Rhea Ripley for Liv Morgan, and he intends on turning on Mommy at SummerSlam because Mommy has been mean to him and abusive to him, and Liv is very sweet and gentle and tender and all that stuff, then they want to put up a good front. So I think the two of them acted this out, pretended to have this big falling out just to lure Rhea Ripley into a false sense of security. So when she's beating the hell out of Liv Morgan at SummerSlam and she's about to win back her championship, Dominic turns on her, costs her the match. I don't think Dominic's going to hit her or anything, but I think he's going to do something that allows Liv Morgan to beat Rhea Ripley and retain the title. That's my prediction. So we will be here this week, by the way, to do SummerSlam predictions. I just got to set that video up and find out which day I'm going to do it. I'll post that for you soon, okay? Dynamite this week. By the way, ratings are holding. They're closer to 800,000 than they are to 700,000, so that's good. I didn't catch the actual rating, but I think it was in the 780 range again, which is a little more normal for them. So this week was headlined, of course, by the big Blood and Guts match, Team Elite versus Team AEW, but they also had some interesting stuff go down on the show. The first one was MJF showing up after his hour-long match with Will Ospreay last week on Dynamite 250, where, with 2 seconds left in the hour time limit, he wins the International Championship by reaching in his trunks, grabbing the Dynamite diamond ring, and blasting Ospreay with it. So MJF is out there for his victory celebration. And he cuts a promo, and it's all the same MJF stuff. Just the same shit, just typical MJF super heel work. And I think everything would have been fine until he mentioned Will Ospreay's grandma. And he just says, you know, your grandma just died, didn't she? Now, it's not the grandma died comment that offends me. I had 3 amazing grandmothers. They were all your typical as seen on TV grandmas. They all spoiled the hell out of me. They all had great chocolate chip cookie recipes. They all looked like old ladies, dressed like old ladies, did old lady things, and they were all super loving and wonderful, the best grandmas a kid could ask for. If I was a wrestler and MJF came up to me, and I know who MJF is, and he goes, hey, is it cool if I shit on your dead grandma in our promo? I'd be like, absolutely. Go right ahead. Crap all over all 3 of them. You know, it's okay. I'm not offended by that. What I'm offended by, I think, is that sometimes Max, he just does it to do it, you know? It's okay. Like, I'm glad that his character is to be an ever-loving prick. Yes, we all appreciate MJF more in that way. I think he can still be that top-level prick without just having just to say stuff to say it. The grandma stuff, it felt like basically he shoehorned the grandma line in. Didn't apply to anything. It's not like Will Ospreay brought her up first. You know, yes, she did recently pass away. I know Ospreay, I think, dedicated the match to her. He did mention it on TV, so we did know about his grandmother, I believe. But Max just kind of saying it, it's like, oh, okay, you didn't even really need to be honest. You could have waited, brought up the grandma at another line, you know, because as we would learn later, they're going to be facing it all in. So you got plenty of promo battles between us here. You could have saved grandma. You know, grandma delivering it there was just like, okay, what's the point of that? You know, you'd probably be better served to wait until next week or the week after or the go-home show when you got a promo battle going on in the ring. Things get a little bit of get heated. That's when you shit on grandma. You know, I can't remember. Did Ospreay dedicate the match to his grandma? Because if he did, you just bring that up. I dedicated my match to my grandma, and you pull out your dynamite ring and hit me, and you know, and then MJF's like, "Who cares? Your grandma's dead," or something like that. Then say it. Then I'd be fine with it. I just feel like he didn't even need to mention that, and I don't want him to start getting to the point how Bray Wyatt got for a while, to where every Bray Wyatt promo was the same, and MJF is treading that line a little bit when he's being overly douchey just for the sake of it. It's hard to explain. Like, I get that that's his character, but you can be a dick you can be creative with your dickness and how dickish you are. You know, you can have some variety to how you spread your dickness to the world. So I think that's what MJF should do more of, rather than just looking for cheap heat lines, you know? And if you got a good grandma line saved up, then wait till it applies. He was just talking to himself for 11 minutes in the ring and then brought up the grandma thing. That would have been better in a back and forth, is my mind, because that way you could structure it and make it look like Ospreay brought it up. You know, he could mention his grandma, and then MJF can be like, fuck your dead grandma, you know, or something like that, instead of just, you know, making it happen. So anyway, he cuts his typical MJF promo, says all his typical MJF shit, and then reveals that the belt that he won, this international championship, which, mind you, has already been rebranded. It's only a 2-year-old title. They've already changed the name once. It was the All-Atlantic Championship first, right? And then they rebranded it for some reason to the international title. So MJF won that. That's the belt he won last week. He says it's a piece of shit, and he throws it in the trash can. There's a trash can at ringside, drops it right in. There's a podium in the ring with a cover over it. And that's when he reveals that he's the champion, I guess, of the only country that matters, and unveils the brand new AEW American Championship. It can't be the U.S. title. WWE's already got one of those. So it's the American Championship. They should just do apostrophe like American Championship. And it's just the belt is basically the kind of like how the international title looks, except the strap is all red, white, and blue. It's the type of belt that makes you want to body slam a sumo wrestler and then go on a bus tour. It looks like that. And it's the American Championship now. It's gaudy and ugly and in your face, but oddly pleasant and pleasing at the same time. It's hard to explain this phenomenon, how a belt can be both ugly and pretty at the same time, but this one is. And he holds it up, and he's now the new American Champion. So I can't imagine this is going to last too long. This is going to be like his version of a custom title. He's starting to do what Jericho does. You know, he now has found something else for him to do. He's not going to be in the world title picture, at least in the immediate future, because it's already crowded there. So now he's doing something else. He wins the championship, but that can't be enough. He's got to rebrand it, rechristen it, and change its name and make that his thing. And as he is celebrating with the American Championship, I think red, white, and blue streamers come down. Will Ospreay shows up. He hits the ring. MJF scurries out of the ring and runs off. And Ospreay gets on the mic. He climbs on the ropes and he tells Max, "You knew you couldn't beat me. Once you got to the 59-minute mark, you knew you couldn't do it." He goes, "So you reached in your pants. You went past your tiny little dick." And he probably does have a tiny one too. You can tell. And you grabbed the Dynamite diamond ring and hit me with it. And, you beat me, because you're a little bitch. And Ospreay then reveals that he went and talked to AEW management, specifically Christopher Daniels, and he was able to secure a rematch for All In against MJF. Now, that was the match I picked out right from the start. As soon as the match was made prior to Dynamite 250, I said we're probably going to see a finish that allows us to get that match at All In, because that's the match we thought we were going to get it All In anyway. So granted, it was surprising to see them give that away for free on TV, but I'm like, that's got to be a way to set up that match. Somebody else said that maybe MJF could take on Daniel Garcia, and I think that would be great, but just not for All In. Now, I'm glad that we're getting Ospreay and MJF, but I got to tell you, I don't see Ospreay winning the belt back here. MJF rechristening this thing as the American Championship and then taking the time and going through the trouble to create a new belt and make a new belt, spend the money to do that. You're not going to do that for 4 weeks. And then MJF, loses the belt? Because Ospreay, even in his promo, he goes, it's going to be me and you for the International Championship. So it doesn't sound like AEW is recognizing the name change. They might just be calling it the American Championship when MJF is champion, but once he loses it, it's going to go back to being the International Championship, and maybe the person that beats him can do the Medusa Hall of Fame thing and pull the belt out of the trash can. This is the belt. And then shit can the red, white, and blue nonsense. But I feel like they wouldn't make that belt just for MJF to turn it right back over to Will Ospreay. Plus, we're in an election time. There's like 100 days until the election. The next 3 months are going to be wild in our dumpster fire of a country that I live in. So having that red, white, and blue belt and a lot of American themed shit surrounding MJF, didn't they do like 4 years ago? Didn't they do a debate? There's probably going to be a debate. I bet you on Dynamite, they're going to do some MJF debate thing, and he's going to be all decked out in his red, white, and blue belt. And maybe it's Garcia on the other side. Maybe it's Ospreay on the other side. I don't know, but I feel like because of this new championship that they have created, MJF's not just going to up and lose this thing in 1 month. I think that he'll probably find a way to beat Ospreay. Fuck, I don't even know how that's going to happen, man. He's going to beat him twice? I guess so. Well, shit, maybe Ospreay does win it All In. Luckily, I got like 3 weeks before I have to do my predictions, but I feel like MJF wouldn't create this new persona of this championship belt if it's just going to be a super short-lived thing. I feel like this is something he's going to do for a couple of months until he drops it again. But dropping it right back to Ospreay would make me wonder why they put the belt on MJF to begin with and gave him a red, white, and blue belt for 4 weeks. Doesn't it seem weird? Anyway, so we got a new American champion in AEW, and I don't even hate it. I actually like it. I think it's hilarious. The women were busy on Dynamite as well. Mariah May won a match. She beat somebody in a squash, didn't even catch her name. But I was just waiting for Toni Storm to come out because there was no way Toni Storm was not going to get her hands on Mariah May on the show. After Mariah May gets the win, Toni's music plays. Mariah starts looking towards the entrance and then starts laughing. I guess Mariah had set the music, or she was able to get the music played to fool the crowd, to troll them, much like Sean trolled us with the Brett song all those years ago. And so she starts smiling and laughing about the whole thing. And that's when Toni Storm shows up from behind, all dressed in black, attacks Mariah May, goes nuts on her. Officials come into the ring. They separate them. Toni grabs the mic and she screams, "Are you prepared to die? Because I am." Oh my God, it was so good. She looked crazy because I was wondering how this, angry, out for revenge Toni Storm was going to look in the context of the character she currently has. So the jilted starlet is now, the very, very angry, out for revenge starlet. And I like that. She had this crazy makeup. Schiavone mentioned something about her being out of a Tarantino movie. She kind of was. And the way she was just screaming. It should be fun in All In, or in Wembley, to see these two. And we got a long time. That's the thing. There's a whole nother month left of build. AEW is doing a good job this year of getting matches set for All In way before the show. Last year, I think we were 3 or 2 weeks from showtime, and we only had a couple of matches announced. Now we got a pretty good idea of what, the meat of the card is going to be, and that's good. And now we got a whole nother month to build up a lot between these two women. I think it's a little bit too early at this point to predict a winner because a lot can happen in the next 3 or 4 Dynamites leading up to Wembley. Britt Baker, her and Mercedes were busy as well. This was great. Britt Baker back in the ring, taking on Hikaru Shida. It felt like 2019 up in here. Loved it. Good to see Britt back. She looks so good, doesn't she? Just blown away by how good she looks. So really, really happy to see Britt Baker back in the ring. She was, one of my favorites in AEW for a long time. I loved her presentation, her character, love her theme music. And she's probably been my favorite woman in that company, at least in, the first chapter of AEW's life. Now their roster has grown quite dramatically with the women especially, and they got a whole slew of characters and great talent there. And one of my favorites currently is Toni Storm. But seeing Britt Baker back after all this time was great. So she beats Hikaru Shida, and that's when Mercedes Moné comes out. Now, as of Wednesday, this match wasn't official for All In, but we knew we were going to get it. Tony Khan, of course, yelled it at us at Comic-Con. But on Wednesday, we hadn't known yet, but you knew it was coming. And Mercedes came out. She looked awesome. A little cowboy hat on. Fucking great outfit. Looked great with her title. And talks about how Britt wants a match with her. And basically is like, okay. And seems way too friendly about the whole situation. And then the camera kind of starts, that's focused on Britt, who's watching Mercedes, pulls back a little wide. And you see, from behind, a woman we've been waiting for to debut, Camille. Camille shows up. My niece's name is Camille. Hi, Camille. Although she spells hers with a C. This is Camille with a K. She comes in from behind, attacks Britt Baker, lays her out, and I think this is a great use for her. As Mercedes heater, that's perfect. Perfect way to bring her in. Right off the bat, she's working with, one of the top, female talents in the company instead of just trying to get over on her own. Now she can be in the Psycho Sid role or the Diesel role, and Mercedes, can be Sean. And I think it's an excellent way to bring her in. So, it's a little reminiscent too of, Big Bill and Jericho, but with Camille, someone who is big and as bad as her, this is a good role for her to be in. So it's great to see her there. We'll see how long they can keep the alliance between these two up. If this is something that will eventually implode and Camille will go off on her own, that's generally the way these alliances work. But hopefully, if they have chemistry and Camille and Mercedes, they're pairing well together on screen, then no rush on that, breaking them up, and don't have them just together for 2 months and split them. See if they can, have a little bit of a run here and help get Camille some exposure and whatnot. And Camille could be, as long as they don't screw her up, Camille could be what Wardlow was to MJF. That would be a good example if she can start, because Mercedes is exactly the type of character that would abuse her heater or her bodyguard or her help. She absolutely is the type of person that will do that, that will talk down to her, order her around, things like that, treading into verbal abuse category. And then at some point will be the physical abuse where Camille will piss her off and then she'll slap her. They'll do that. They always do that. So I think that's probably how all this will go. But I hope the two have enough good chemistry to where Camille can start being built up, gaining momentum, and fans taking notice of her. That's what this is all designed to do, I would assume. So best of luck to Camille and Mercedes, and I think that's an excellent pairing. So hopefully they will have that chemistry on screen and it will translate. And the last thing I want to talk about on Dynamite is the big blood and guts match. It was wild. I enjoyed it. I did. Sometimes I feel like blood and guts is a little similar with AEW to Hell in a Cell and WWE. And I always had a big problem with Hell in a Cell being on the calendar. And I said, you shouldn't force yourself to put matches in the cell. You should save the cell to when you have a feud that just grows organically and has a good amount of heat and personal rivalry to where it warrants a match as violent as the Hell in the Cell. Where if you just stick it on your calendar, you just got to make shit happen for it, and it lacks it lacks any real life. And blood and guts, I feel like, yeah, the Elite have got a good thing. This worked okay because the Elite suck, and you can easily find a team of AEW people to take them on, but I think the one last year felt like it was, I don't know, just forced a little bit. And with this one, I did like it a little bit better because you had story beats in the match. You had the Swerve stuff and the Hangman stuff. And of course, everything going on with Jack Perry and Darby Allin. The Bucks are out there. It was all over the place, and it was a lot of fun. So one of the first things they did that I liked was they handcuffed Swerve Strickland to the cage on the outside of the cage. So he was stuck there for a good portion of the match while a lot of stuff was going on and he was helpless. Jeff Jarrett and Billy Gunn wound up coming out there, and man, I always get so nervous whenever there's handcuffs and somebody has to be unlocked by the handcuffs. Every single time. It takes forever. Nobody can ever do it, and you can see them panicking. It's like Jake Hager couldn't get the Money in the Bank briefcase off that time. It's like you could see him like, oh, fuck. And so watching Billy and Jarrett trying to unlock Swerve was just taking way too long. Nana comes down there with like little wire cutters. So I'm thinking they're going to cut the handcuff. I'm like, you don't want to do that. And then he's going to be wrestling with a handcuff on his wrist. That's going to suck. But he was supposed to be freed by the handcuffs by then for Nana to come down with the wire cutter so he can cut a hole in the fence and get through the fence. And that's what he did. So once he's finally freed from the handcuffs, they cut a hole with the wire cutters. He gets in the ring, and that's where he looks like a champion. He destroys everyone, beats the shit out of every single member of the Elite, and has that awesome face-off with Hangman. That's what we were waiting for. The two of them start brawling. We get the big staple gun party. We had Swerve, I think, busting out the staple gun first, and then all of the members of the Elite get their own staple guns, and they just start stapling Swerve. They're just nailing him all over the place. He's able to turn the tables and just starts taking them out one by one. Staples Nick Jackson. Then he staples Jack Perry in the neck, like pulls him back, like almost in Sister Abigail position, and clicks him right in the neck. Then he gets caught by Okada, who is about to hit him with the Rainmaker, but instead of hitting him with the Rainmaker, he just flips him the bird, and then Swerve staples his middle finger. And the way Okada just goes, and he sells it. Oh my God, it's so great. And so then after Okada's middle finger gets stapled, in comes Hangman with the buckshot lariat. Swerve ducks, Hangman nails Okada with that, and then Swerve grabs a staple gun and staples Hangman Page right in his fucking jaw. Oh my God. And then he goes down to one knee and he kicks him in the head with the house call. That entire sequence was exactly why I love pro wrestling. It was so much fun. So much fun. So now there's a big hole in the cage. So people are falling out of it and starting to exit the cage. Swerve and Hangman brawl up the ramp and take a table bump off the stage. So that kind of eliminates them from the match. So they're not going to be a part of the finish. They have unfinished business to do. I guess it all out. That's my guess. So then you have Anthony Bowens. They've got tables stacked up on the outside of the cage. He does a big cage fall through the 4 tables. Big bump there. We had Briscoe. Mark Briscoe delivers an elbow drop onto, I think, Matt Jackson onto a table that's in between, that's wedged between the 2 rings, which is a new spot that I haven't seen before. Probably my favorite spot of the match. My favorite spot of the match or sequence of the match was the staple gun party. But my second favorite was Darby Allin doing the coffin drop on Jack Perry. Perry's on the table in the ring. Darby climbs up the cage. Then he climbs on the cage roof, and he's using one of the trusses to climb basically with his back facing down. and gets himself in coffin drop position, lifts up, a lot of core strength it takes to do this, lifts himself up, measures himself, and then just drops. And he falls coffin drop style onto Jack Perry, breaks the tables in half, which was an incredible spot and super fun. And then Jack Perry gets handcuffed to the cage. So they've got him handcuffed fucking Raven style. Remember Raven in ECW when Tommy Dreamer did the psh? That's what this was. And so Jungle Boy's handcuffed to the cage. He can't go anywhere, but he's defiant. He's spit. They're telling him to say, "I quit." I think Briscoe's got a kendo stick and he nails hit with Jack with the kendo stick, and he just spits in his face. And then Mark, our friend Mark Briscoe, grabs a chair. Now, albeit a gimmicked chair, but still a chair, and absolutely blasts him with an unprotected chair shot to the head, to the face of Jack Perry. And that was really, really brutal. And that got some chatter online. But that wasn't really, he still did not quit after that. He was basically unconscious, but he did not quit. That's when Darby Allin goes and gets some gasoline or lighter fluid, dumps it all over Jack Perry, and grabs a lighter and threatens to light him on fire. And Jack is still like defiant. And that's when Matt Jackson, there's a microphone in the ring, Matt Jackson, who's handcuffed to the bottom rope, he can't go anywhere. He says, "Is that what you want? Do you want Jack Perry at All In? Do you want him for the TNT Championship? You got it." So he just offers up and grants Darby a championship match against Jack Perry at All In, as long as he doesn't light Jack Perry on fire. So, and then I think he says he quits at that point too. And that's when he quits and says, "Okay, we quit. You get the title match or whatever. Just don't light him on fire," and grants him the match at All In. So the baby faces wind up winning. Team AEW winds up winning. I had that wrong. I thought Team Elite was going to win that. And now Darby Allin does get that match officially with Jack Perry at All In. Now, in terms of blood and guts, I thought the match was a lot of fun. Again, with these type of matches, you're going to have some violence. Now, the big chair shot that Jack Perry got nailed with, that got a lot of chatter online. And I had mistakenly believed, because the only chatter I was seeing online was, the bad faith chatter. I'm like, I don't think, based on what I had seen, the early posts about the discussions about the chair shot, I'm like, to me, it doesn't seem like anybody really cares about the chair shot. What they care about is which company did it. What they care about is which company did the chair shot. They're looking to find popular people crap on the company they hate. That's how they spend their day. That's how they get their jollies. That's what they're looking to do. They don't really care about wrestler safety. They see an opportunity to shit on AEW, and that is the top priority to them. What I did not know about, after seeing a lot of those posts, was what Corey Graves tweeted out. And I'm going to read you that. And I wasn't aware of this. Somebody in my Twitter replies was like, "No, bro, Greg, that's not what it's about. Corey Graves said this, this, and this." And here's what Corey Graves said. "This is not meant to sound judgmental or incite an us versus them or question anybody's passion or talent or intentions. This is just coming from a guy whose career ended from a few too many accidental headshots. The art of this business is protecting ourselves and each other. Trust me, the gaps in memory are not worth it. I promise." So that's Corey, someone who has suffered, from concussions, and legitimately, unlike the bad faith fans, seems concerned about wrestler safety and spoke up when he saw a chair shot like that. I can respect that opinion because that's coming from an actual person, an actual wrestler who has legitimate concerns. Where a lot of the other people online and fans online pretending, you just read some of their timelines and some of the shit they post and the hateful crap, they're going to try to pretend that they care about somebody's safety. No, you don't. You're looking to shit on the company. But then you do have people like Corey Graves, or maybe even other fans, who are genuinely worried and say that chair shot went too far. You're right. It was a gnarly chair shot. And I think it's very good that pro wrestling and sports in general these days are much more aware of the dangers of head trauma and CTE and what can happen to you in these situations. But football and wrestling even all the protections you put in place, football, you can barely sneeze on the quarterback now, and it's a penalty. AEW and WWE are, I think WWE more so than AEW. They're a little bit less violent than AEW, but AEW is not oblivious, to these dangers either. And I think that for the most part, we are seeing unprotected chair shots extremely rarely. But just like in football, no matter how many protections you put in place, just like in wrestling, even if you gimmick the chair or you try to have a policy of no chair shots, no head shots, things like that, you're going to slip a couple of past the goalie every now and then. And I think we need to chalk this up to that being one of those times. Now, granted, AEW's had a few weird instances. They had that situation with Matt Hardy a couple years ago where he had that concussion and they kind of let him finish the match. They've made some mistakes in that regard, for sure. And maybe this chair shot wasn't something they want to do very often, or maybe even do again for that matter. But they are still, even in AEW, even as gnarly as they are, they're more gnarly with the blood. It's not, it's more bloody than it is actual blunt force, Mike Awesome, Masato Tanaka trauma to the head. Those matches in ECW are what really should make you nervous. Watching that stuff, we don't see that style of chair shots or head trauma or bumps anymore, or if we do, it's pretty rare. And I think if you are going to sign up to be a pro wrestler or a professional football player or a football player of any kind, you have to be aware of these dangers and know that, yes, even though you want to try to protect yourself and your head as much as possible, it is very likely that you're going to get a concussion in your life, probably multiple. That's the game you're playing. You can't make this one completely safe. You just can't. What you can do is be smart and be as smart as possible and take care of each other. And maybe some fans argue that wasn't done here. You might be right. But I'm not going to take anybody's opinion who's a known bad faith hater. If you got an opinion on this, I'm checking your timeline first. And if your whole timeline is full of calling Tony Khan names and tweeting hard cam pics, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to respect you. But somebody brought up, and I'm glad they did, what Corey Graves said, because he deleted the tweet. So I didn't know about it. So I'm like, oh, okay. See, I can understand Corey and anybody like him who has this opinion of that. I get it totally. But, when you get in the podcast community, you look at the Bully Rays and stuff, you think Bully Ray really gives a shit about Jack Perry's safety. We know what Bully Ray's game is. So it's just hard sometimes to take people at face value. And my initial reaction was, nobody cares about wrestler safety, but that's inaccurate. A lot of fans actually do. And so AEW might want to cool it on that stuff. Now, Darby Allin, in Blood and Guts, he received a TNT Championship match granted to him at All In. He gets that match in Blood and Guts at the same TV taping. They taped Rampage, which aired last night. And Darby Allin won a battle royal, a Royal Rampage battle royal. And got and earned a world championship match at Grand Slam, which I believe is coming up in September. So Darby got 2 championship matches, the 2 biggest championships in the company. Darby secured a title shot to both on the same TV taping. That's wild stuff. AEW is currently doing their little summer residency there in Arlington, and they're running all their collisions there. And I believe even Death Before Dishonor ran there last night. And I loved the setup. I hope they keep Collision like this. They have found a smaller venue in Arlington that holds just a couple of thousand people. This is what we've been saying, when attendance is down in both companies. We had the same argument at WWE years ago when they had empty hard cams. I'm like, why don't they just book a 5,000 seat arena and sell it out? That's all you got to do, And so this is a smaller venue. You can see the ceiling in this place, and you got the hard cam facing the entrance, which I think is a nice change of pace. Kind of takes you back to the pandemic days, only there's fans there. And I really, really like the setup. Now, it feels like this is just the Arlington setup, and it might go back to the other way, but I like this idea of running multiple shows in one city and bouncing around doing that for their B show Collision. I really did like the look of it. And tonight they're going to be having the premier athletes taking on Briscoe, Tomohiro Ishii, and Kyle O'Reilly. You got Orange Cassidy taking on Jonathan Television. FTR is back. They're taking on Mason Mansoor, who are now in Ring of Honor, which is crazy. I think they're the M&M collection or something. Thunder Rosa is taking on Maya World, and the Best Mordos is taking on Hologram and Leo Rush versus Pac. All of that is going on Collision tonight. Then, immediately following that, you got Battle of the Belts. It's Eliminator Championship match. Toni Storm taking on Taya Valkyrie. And also a CMLL World's Women's Championship Eliminator. Willow taking on Deonna Purrazzo. The only title match happening at Battle of the Belts is the Ring of Honor 6-man tag team titles. The Von Erichs and Dustin Rhodes taking on the Undisputed Kingdom. And help me out. Are the Undisputed Kingdom the ROH 6-man and the Ring of Honor tag champions? I think they are. And Death Before Dishonor, by the way, was last night. Mark Briscoe retained his Ring of Honor championship over Roderick Strong. Layla Hirsch defeated Diamante in a Texas death match that was pretty gnarly. Red Velvet, one of my favorites. She won the Ring of Honor World Television Championship. Athena retained her world title, defeating Queen Aminata. Lee Moriarty picked up the Ring of Honor Pure title, beating Wheeler Yuta. And Atlantis Jr. retained his TV title in a big multi-man eliminator match. Some of the newsworthy things coming out of that. All In. Here's what we got for the All In card. Really only 4 matches, but we know we're going to get much more than that. We got Swerve taking on Bryan Danielson, Jack Perry versus Darby Allin, MJF versus Will Ospreay, and Toni Storm versus Mariah May. And just announced, I believe yesterday here at Comic-Con, was Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker. So we'll probably always also get the Bucks taking on the Acclaimed, I would assume. Sounds like Kenny Omega isn't going to be ready for All In, but there's still a month left, so I suppose he could turn up and maybe face Okada like we wanted him to. I feel like we got to see Hangman Page have a match somewhere on that card, perhaps. And I feel like Hangman Page is probably going to face Swerve Strickland at All Out and possibly win the championship there. I think it could maybe happen. But I feel like that could be the all-out match because I believe Swerve is going to beat Danielson at All In. In terms of SummerSlam, we got Cody and Solo for the championship, Damian Priest and Gunther for the World Heavyweight title. We got Seth Rollins against Drew McIntyre. We got Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley, Bayley versus Nia Jax, Logan Paul versus LA Knight, and Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker. And that is 4, 5, 6, 7 matches on SummerSlam. I kind of hope we get one more. I hope we get a nice 8-match card and they tack one more on there. I feel like if they do, it will probably be the women's tags, perhaps, or it could be the men's tags as the Bloodlines getting a tag team title shot next week on SmackDown. So that makes me a little bit worried for DIY that they could be TIY, transitional champions, yourself only. That's not even right, but I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Poops. Is that right? I don't know. But anyway, there's your SummerSlam card. There's your All In card. We got a busy month ahead of us, and that concludes my notes. I actually got this done in my allotted curfew time. That makes me happy. But before I get out of here, I'll cruise over here, see if you guys have anything interesting to say. Good to see Michael Cuomo also here. Transferring. Don't be disingenuous because he criticizes AEW for a living. Yeah, Bully might care, but Bully just pontificates, and I think it's just more his tone that I'm not a fan of. I don't want anybody, and certainly no man, talking to me the way Bully talks to fans. That does not fly. Not fly with me. So I think that's my issue with Bully is he's condescending a lot, and sometimes just comes off like a dick. Ooh, Bass Fisher, I love Liv. Well, everybody does. Elias, Dom will screw Rhea 0%, and then you said 100%. You left out a digit. Got to be cool with them digits, man. Danny Oak Park, same to you, man. I'm going to have a great... I'm surprised FTR's even back already. I thought Dax had some recovery time ahead of him with his injury and stuff, so that's good. I'm glad. I mean, they might have just gotten themselves back. Hey, we're not going to miss Wembley. So... we'll see what they do there. But should be a fun weekend. I ain't done yet. We're going to be back here tomorrow watching SummerSlam 1999. So if you want to see Shane McMahon and Test tear it up and Jesse Ventura return to the WWE for the first time since God knows when, join us tomorrow. It's going to be a hoot. I wish you guys a great rest of your Saturday night. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I will push this audio out to the podcast feed later tonight, but it probably will be late when I get home, but I will do that. And I wish you a good Saturday night, and I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow for